All right, we are live. Hi, guys. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. So this is Thiago and Emily joining you guys from Milan. We are both teachers at the Meravigli School, which is the central school here in Milan. So yeah, we've been on quarantine, on lockdown now for actually it's been just about a month now, I would say.
hmm Yeah,
How are you doing in all this, Emily? I know we chatted a bit last week. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm always a bit surprised at how okay things are, because you are concerned before it happens about isolation, but really, I find that when I'm busy, when I find things to read, to watch, to do, actually the time goes quite quickly.
That's
How
actually
about
true.
you?
It really has been going by quickly. I am very thankful actually for these webinars because
hmm
they
Yeah,
really, I think they make the at least like half the day go by faster. Whereas, this weekend, for instance, by the time like Sunday evening hit, I was just kind of desperate. It just felt a bit off.
yes,
But you're right. If you find activities to do, it does go by fast. For me, if anything, is like staring at the same walls that kind of gets
yes.
to me sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's the most difficult part, I think.
Yeah. So great, guys. So we got a couple people just saying hello to us. You got Patrick. Hello, Patrick,
Hi,
and
Patrick.
Vladimir. Let us know, Patrick, Vladimir, anybody else joining us. Tell us where you come from. Oh, here we go. Vladimir, tell us. You're from Bologna.
Yeah.
Great,
Mhm.
fantastic. I did an Erasmus program in Bologna, Vladimir, and I think
Yeah.
it's still my favorite city in Italy. Had a
Hmm.
wonderful time there. Emily, have you ever been to Bologna?
No, I was planning a weekend maybe in Bologna, but
Mm-hmm.
was interrupted by the coronavirus.
Oh, you were planning it right
The
around this
plan.
time.
Yes, I haven't booked anything,
I
but I was
see.
planning to do a trip or two
Okay.
around
Oh,
the
it's
time.
yeah. Once it's over, in fact, I feel like
Yeah,
once this is over, people are really gonna be, taking full advantage of it. I'm the kind of person. See, I
yeah,
always like tell myself that I'm gonna, enjoy my weekends, go out, go somewhere. Here, Patrick is from
yeah.
Como. Como is the classic place that from
hmm
Milan, it's so easy to go to. It's
hmm
cheap, it's quick, it's convenient. But then I end up getting lazy, never going. But now I'm like
Yeah, I'm the
dying.
same.
Or something. So cool. All right, guys, welcome. Anyone else joining us? Let us know where you come from. We got Titi. You come from a province of Bari. Great. So you're from a town in the province of Bari. Wonderful, guys. Welcome.
Yeah.
Just some brief intro so you know who we are as well. So, as I said, we live in Milan.
Mhm.
I'm Thiago. I am originally from Brazil, but I've also spent several years in California growing up. And then
Mhm.
we have.
I'm Emily, and as Thiago said, we work in Milan. I am originally from the UK, from the middle of England.
Great. What city is closest to you, Emily? Like a bigger city?
Birmingham is
Birmingham.
maybe 20
Okay.
minutes from where I am.
Cool.
Um,
I don't know how it's because I had a friend who lived in a town. I'm trying to remember the name. Barry St. Edmunds or something.
okay.
That's like I guess it's more south than middle.
Yes, that's more south and east,
Like
I think.
east, right? Yeah, because Birmingham is
Yeah.
more like west, no?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Not too
it's the
far from
middle,
Wales.
slightly west, a little west.
Okay.
I'm probably my city is about 2 hours from London, probably. So
I
it's
see.
further
Cool.
north than London, but direct on the train.
Cool. All right, great.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have a not such a happy topic for you guys tonight,
Mm,
but it is a useful one. There are lots of good expressions and different things we can all talk about.
yeah. So we have natural disasters today. So we have the picture, which gives you an idea of what those are, if you're not sure. So we'll talk about vocabulary for different natural disasters, some things that happen that are extraordinary weather events, normally natural disasters. And we can talk about some grammar also. You can use the present perfect or the past simple, depending on the context, and preparing a safety plan, and possibly, depending on time, how to talk about surviving a natural disaster.
Exactly. Great.
Okay.
So yeah, so first we can perhaps look at the definition, of course, of a natural disaster. So here I can read the text for you guys.
Mhm.
So natural disasters are extreme, sudden events caused by environmental factors that injure people and cause extensive damage. They can strike anywhere in the world, often without warning. So there are a few words that could be useful here to look at.
Mhm.
Maybe the word sudden is a good one. So if something is
Mhm.
sudden, it happens. Also, actually, if you look at the very last sentence, it basically explains it. If something happens without warning, when you are not expecting something to happen, we say it is sudden. Sudden. We also have the expression all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Great. Maybe another one. They have that to injure, or yeah, to injure. That's the verb. So to injure is to cause damage, and they also have that in the text. Cause damage. The noun being an injury. If any of you guys practice sport, I clearly don't very much. But
Mhm.
an injury is used a lot. If you're playing football or something, you might fall down and you hurt yourself. You have an injury.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anything
Yeah.
else, Emily, you think would be interesting to explain here?
Maybe the word strike, also
Ah, yeah,
another
to
verb we
strike.
have. So to strike is like to hit suddenly again, often with a lot of violence. So a
Exactly.
lightning strike is the classic example that you can
Yeah.
see in the picture. This is a lightning strike.
Yeah, if it helps you remember, because I believe like when you go bowling, a strike is
Mhm.
pretty universal. It's used in all languages. So think of it when you
Yes.
go bowling, you have a strike, you hit everything, right? So
Hmm.
to strike, maybe that can help you remember.
Yeah. So please let us know if you have any other questions about this definition. But maybe now we can think about some types of natural disaster, some more specific words for things that happen.
Hmm.
So please tell us in the comments, what do you think are examples of natural disasters?
Yeah, exactly. Let's make a list together. And feel free to give us, you can even tell us one at a time. You don't have to,
Mhm.
do one long comment. Also, because sometimes you have a bit of a delay. So just let
Yes.
us know as you think of them. Let's just brainstorm.
Mhm. And so we saw a picture before of lightning. Um, do you think, Thiago, that lightning or lightning strikes are natural disasters?
I would say it's more of a natural phenomenon. Of
Mhm.
course, in certain parts of the world, they might be very prevalent and they might cause a lot of damage. And I think that's what makes it a disaster at that point.
Mhm.
See, I actually come from a place in Brazil that is well known for there being a lot of lightning.
Right.
Though I haven't heard much of accidents or things. It can certainly happen, but of
Mhm.
course, it's quite rare that it will like hit a person, or if anything, it can be quite dangerous if you are like in a body of water. So if you're
Yes.
swimming when there's a storm and there are lightning strikes, then it can be a bit dangerous, certainly.
Mhm.
But of course, lightning strikes, they often come with big thunderstorms.
Mhm.
and that can certainly be can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, I completely agree. In the UK, the damage by storms is probably one of the biggest disasters that you can have. Apart from maybe one or two other things that we can talk about in a minute. Okay, so I don't think we have any comments yet, but I know there is a delay sometimes. So what is the disaster in this picture? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah.
It's difficult to
What
tell, I
what
know.
is that really? Yeah.
I
Like I'm
know.
thinking like a sandstorm, but it's not a sandstorm. It doesn't
Mm,
look to be like in the middle of a desert. Mm,
yeah, it does look like a type of storm related to dust, maybe.
yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, dust storm maybe could.
Dust storm.
Uh,
Yeah,
we do
it's
have a
difficult.
couple. Patrick
Ah,
mentioned
perfect.
one, an earthquake.
Mm,
Yeah, and I know, in places like in some places, especially in Italy, earthquakes can be quite prevalent as well.
mhm.
Where I grew up in California, earthquakes are also quite big
Yes.
there. Yeah, bushfires. Yeah,
Mhm,
bushfires, wildfires. They also work. Good word there, TT.
mhm.
A tsunami.
Yeah,
Hmm.
those are great ones, and
Yeah,
often the ones that you see in the news quite often.
yeah, definitely. Have you ever
Bushfires.
experienced an earthquake, Emily?
I have experienced a very mild earthquake, so a
Hmm.
very, very small one. Um, not like you would expect in California or in other places in the world.
Ironically enough, in California, I never really experienced like such huge earthquakes, because the big
Mhm.
ones, they tend to be more towards the south, the frequent ones.
Right.
And then in the north of California, then you might have some big ones, but those are they take a long time.
Mm.
But I was actually living in Italy in, I think this was in 2012, when there was a big one in Emilia Romagna. And another big difference is that in the States, we tend to live kind of like in houses, so we are on the ground
Yes.
floor, maybe the first floor. But I got to experience this from the seventh floor of an apartment building, and
Wow.
that was, an experience that I had never before. One thing that was quite surprising to me is how it seems. The first thing that you feel doesn't even seem to be the shaking. You kind of feel something in the air. It's like everything
Mhm.
slows down and kind of stops, and you know something is off, but it takes you a second for you to realize what's happening. And that was something, yeah, that I didn't expect. It's
Yeah.
quite different.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's the type of experience that it's difficult to describe because it's so unexpected.
Yeah, very sudden, definitely. Patrick says in California, there will be, maybe he said there will be the big one. Most likely, Patrick, yeah, I mean, there are lots of quakes in California. Yeah.
Mhm.
I actually grew up not too far from the San Andreas Fault, which is
Mhm.
it's a famous area as well. Hurricane, great job.
Mhm.
We have a drought. Wonderful. Do you want to
Yeah, really
explain
good
this
one.
one, Emily? Do you want to explain to everyone what a drought is?
Yeah, so drought is when there is not enough water in the land. So you see that in parts of the world close to the desert. So it is a place where people live and where you need water and you expect water, but there is not enough rain, or maybe there are mistakes in farming also, and there is not enough water at all. You see
Yeah.
this a bit now in Australia after all the fires
Yeah, and yeah, a
mentioned.
lot of these disasters, they're kind of connected. One thing
Mhm,
leads to another. So droughts can often lead to fires. That's also what we see in California. More
mhm.
so now than in the past. Every summer, lots of wildfires, just like in Australia.
Mm.
Yeah, Titi has a comment here says the Quake was a restaurant's name where Piper worked in The Charmed, a famous TV movie of 90. Oh, I've never seen this.
No, I've heard of it.
Cool. The
I
Quake.
like
All
that.
right.
Hmm.
And another example of natural disaster is a blizzard. Yes. So a
Mm.
snowstorm. Yeah, a blizzard.
Yeah,
And also
great.
related to snow, you might have an avalanche.
Hmm. Yeah,
Definitely.
an avalanche always with a mountain, always snow coming down a
Yeah.
mountain very
I
quickly.
always think of the Mulan cartoon, when
Yes.
they shoot the rocket and then it creates an avalanche. I always think of that when I see that word. I think it's
Yeah.
only where I learned it.
No, I used to be very scared of avalanches when I was a child, which is very strange because I am not from an area near mountains. But
Ah.
I think I read a book that had an avalanche in it, and I was very scared
Oh,
of them.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. Yeah,
Um,
that's one thing that's never been on my radar. It's an
mm.
avalanche.
Whereas I have been in a blizzard. I have been. I remember my stepmom had an accident during a blizzard. She fell down the stairs, so
Oh
we had
God.
to go to the hospital during a blizzard.
You guys
Uh,
had to drive to the hospital.
we did, yes, yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Um,
That
and
must have
that
been quite scary at driving. For me,
it
even
was.
driving in the snow in general is
Mhm.
quite scary.
Yes, no, it was absolutely. Oh, we have a sandstorm as well. What
Sandstorm, yeah.
types of storms today? That's great.
Yeah, which is what first thing that came to mind, Patrick, looking at this picture, I thought of a
Mhm.
sandstorm. I don't know, this it's
Yeah.
possible that this is a city located near the desert, it could be like Las Vegas or something. In
Mhm.
that case, it could be, yeah, affected by a sandstorm. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, great. So maybe we'll reveal the list here. I think we mentioned a lot of these already. Um, but I'll just read them for the pronunciation and
Hmm.
then we can talk about any unfamiliar ones. So we have earthquake, tsunami, heat wave, volcanic eruption or a volcano, avalanche, flood, landslide, severe thunderstorm, blizzard, tornado, forest fire, hurricane, and drought.
Great.
We
Yeah, let
mentioned
us know,
all.
guys, any that you might not be super familiar with.
Mhm.
Yeah, tornado is a good one.
Mhm.
I feel like the vast majority of tornadoes are only in the United States.
Yes, I've never
Um,
experienced them.
no, me neither. It's usually in the middle of the United States.
Right.
The big difference between I know that a hurricane and a tornado is a hurricane is just mostly in tropical areas, that it's a
Mhm.
combination of like hot air with cold air mixing, and that's what
Yeah,
causes a hurricane. But tornado is about pressure, if I'm not mistaken,
I
like air
think so,
pressure.
because I think a hurricane forms over the sea and a
Yeah,
tornado over land,
and
and the
tornadoes
air
over
is going to
land.
be
Yeah, and
different.
that's why you get it in the middle of the U.S. You have so much land.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. Again, I was very scared of tornadoes as a child, even though there are never tornadoes in the UK. I think because of the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, the
Um,
Wizard of Oz.
because
Yes,
if
yeah, the
anyone has seen
Twister as
that,
well.
uh, there is a tornado at the beginning of the Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz.
Cool.
So what's the difference between, we talked about a drought. What's the difference between a drought and a heat wave?
I would say that a heat wave is something that you mostly feel in the air, and it tends to be more temporary, usually, than a
Mm,
drought. Because a drought is characterized by a very long time of no rain, and then it
mm,
becomes a drought. Whereas a heat wave can sometimes even last just like a few hours or a couple days. I know that for the Italians joining us, you might be familiar with the Scirocco. That's a heat wave that
mm.
comes from Africa, and as it passes through the desert, it kind of takes in a lot of the heat from the desert, and then it you know passes through the country and the rest of Europe
Mhm.
as well. But that's at least what comes to mind. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah,
Is that the different how you see it as well?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe drought is about the water level in general,
Hmm.
and heat is more about temperature. But I agree with you.
Yeah, and then another interesting one could perhaps be a flood, which
Hmm.
we didn't talk about. That's kind of the opposite, right, of a drought.
Hmm. Yeah, this is one that we do have in the UK quite often. We have floods or flooding. You can use both of those words, which is when water escapes from the rivers, from the waterways in the country, and into villages, into the countryside.
Yeah,
And this is becoming a bigger problem in places like the UK. Think just like in other places, droughts become more common, then you get floods in other places.
yeah, yeah. Been a lot of changes. Like we're seeing not only more like extreme climate events, but also very different ones in different parts.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And flood you can use more conversationally as a way to say a big amount, a big quantity of something. So if there is a flood of people in a shop, maybe not so much at the moment,
Ah,
you can talk about a big number
oh,
of
that's
people.
cool. I've never heard of that.
Oh,
A
really?
flood of people.
Oh,
That's great. Like a bunch of
oh yeah.
people, like
It's
a
quite. That
large
was just the
amount.
first example, but
Cool.
yeah, or a drought even. You can say there is a drought of. Trying to think now. You can say I'm in a reading drought or a book drought. I don't have any books at
Not
the moment.
enough.
I'm not
Not
reading
enough of.
anything.
I see. Yeah.
Um,
Great.
okay, maybe one more to talk about a landslide. I
Ah,
think
yeah.
not too quite logical there. Landslide.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
literally think of land sliding.
mhm,
So this could be due to maybe the terrain is not strong enough to support what has been built on top of it. It could simply be due to perhaps like several thunderstorms in the area that have made that the soil more have made it weaker, and so it actually seeds and then maybe houses and everything just they fall down a mountain.
mhm.
The land
Yeah,
will slide down.
and again, we use this a lot in politics with elections. For example,
Hmm.
if someone has a landslide victory or wins by a landslide, it means they win by a long way.
Yeah, by a large percentage. I'm writing it down here as well. In elections. Yeah, very good one. Yeah, landslide victory. Hmm.
Mhm. I think for me, I use that phrase more often than the technical term landslide.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do use it a lot for elections.
Mm. We have another question here. So either in the comments or at Thiago also, what do you think is the worst type of natural disaster?
Yeah. So let us know, guys. Which one do you think is the worst type of natural disaster? Tell us why.
Hmm.
Let me see. Personally, let me have a look here. See, this could be due to just kind of seeing this happen to people that I know, but I know that forest fires, wildfires can be really scary
Hmm.
because it is so hard to control. They spread very quickly, and you can employ all the resources you have, and you still don't quite, you can't quite contain it. As we know, we also saw in Australia recently.
Hmm.
But also, yeah, like there some of these they give you absolutely no warning. See, a hurricane is one that usually you can sort of predict, so you can
Hmm.
prepare, you can evacuate. But
Yeah.
some of them, it's just so sudden. Like a landslide can be really sudden, an
Mhm.
avalanche. Yeah,
Yes, I think if you are in a risk area for for an avalanche or a volcano, if you live near a volcano or a mountain, then that would
that's
be
also
very
quite
scary.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick has a question. So in the UK and USA, do you use? I would say so. Do you use earthquake for the elections? Not that I know of.
Not
Wait,
not in my experience either. Um,
I don't
just
think so, Patrick. But yeah, landslide for the victory.
mm,
I don't think
no.
earthquake.
I mean, I suppose there is a kind of similar phrase for maybe when someone is becoming famous, someone is in the process of becoming famous. You can say they are making waves. So that is a similar way of saying things are changing. Someone is changing nature. Someone is making waves, but not really an earthquake in that I know of.
Yeah, great. And Vladimir is telling us, I think the worst disaster is fire because it is very fast. Yeah,
Mm,
it is
yeah,
very fast. Yeah, and then once it's combined with strong winds,
yeah,
it's particularly bad.
yes, it is. That's. I think I agree with you, Vladimir. Okay, so please continue to send comments or questions as we move on. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. So these questions are quite small on the screen, so I'll read the first one. So, have you or someone you know ever experienced a natural disaster, and what happened?
Exactly. And the second question is asking you, have there been any natural disasters in the world recently? If so, what happened? What caused it? And were there any casualties slash fatalities? And those are some nice words as well. So a
Mhm.
casualty. Um, a casualty, I would say it's a negative result of a disaster.
Mhm.
So a casualty could also be referring to perhaps like an entire city that gets destroyed, a building that gets knocked down, or people getting hurt. Okay, these are all casualties. They're effects of that. And fatalities, mostly I think refers to people who have maybe passed away, that have died as a result of the disaster.
Yeah, some really useful words there. Okay, we have another comment. So the worst type of natural disaster is the earthquake. Okay, like the earthquake which um, fed or which has fed fears so many times, plural, in the center of Italy last year's. Okay, so really, Titi, you only need one of these things. So either which fed fears in the past, it is finished, but I think it is continuing. So just has fed fears so many times in the center of Italy.
Yeah.
So I would remove last year's because
Yeah,
it's a fear that began in the past and is continuing.
yeah, and it's a good point. It's one thing. It was one of the objectives that we have for today is the difference. Just to talk grammar for a second between
Mhm.
simple past versus present perfect. We do have some very specific rules, and we can spend all day talking about the differences. And then you will see
Yeah.
that when native speakers use it, we're not the most consistent. So an
Mhm.
easy way to think about it is if you are mentioning the finished time when it happened, use past simple. If the fact is something that has any kind of connection to the present, so for example, if something that in the case of the like Titi's example you mentioned, so to feed fears, which is a great expression by the way.
It is,
So
yeah.
so feeding the fears, so that started in the past and continues to feed fears now. So has fed fears. So see, you have a connection to the present.
Mhm.
So whether because the action continues or because whatever happened in the past is still relevant or important in the present. we would use the present perfect. That's the easiest way to think about it without
Hmm.
getting too stressed about the specifics.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice summary. Thank you.
And
Okay.
Patrick is telling us that fortunately, so this is another really good example. See, Patrick, now
Hmm.
you're saying in the context of your entire life, right? So in your entire life, this was never an experience. So your life is not finished. So the time that we're referring to here is not yesterday or last year or when I
Hmm.
was a child. It's your entire life. So it's best here to use the present perfect. So fortunately, I haven't experienced any of these natural events. I haven't experienced. Okay. But really nice example. Thanks for sharing. And
Mm.
Vladimir, he's from Ukraine, where natural disasters they happen hardly ever. So they hardly ever happen. Yeah, maybe a little flood. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some
Mm.
areas they tend to be more protected from lots of different natural disasters. I know where we live here in Milan, Lombardy in
Mm.
general. I've heard that it's one of the few areas in Italy that are not affected by like seismic activities such as
Right.
earthquakes, for instance.
Yeah, interesting. I suppose people build cities or try to build cities in solid areas, in areas that do not that are not destroyed very easily. Um,
Yeah,
Although, of course, flooding can be a problem in cities because they often have rivers through them. So I know in London, people are very careful about looking at the water level in the River Thames in London and other cities as well. Okay. So, what do you think about this second question also? Have there been any natural disasters recently?
yeah, and feel free to think about maybe not just the last 2 or 3 months, but think maybe about the
Mm.
last few years. What kind
Yeah.
of disasters have we seen? So I'm trying to think of others that maybe
Mm.
I have experienced in the meantime. So yeah, the earthquake was that one. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of like floods, especially back home in Brazil, you hear about floods as well,
Mm.
which sometimes is due to, especially in big cities that didn't have proper urban planning because they grew very quickly due to mass
Yeah.
migration in a very short period of time. Um, the cities developed in such a way with so much concrete and not,
Mhm.
a good like draining system that floods are pretty commonplace. But I personally don't think I've ever experienced it.
No, no, I haven't experienced many myself either. Um, I think there have been floods very near to my city, maybe in the same region, but not
But not
actually
in
in my
your city.
no,
Exactly.
no, because there is not really any water where I am
I
um,
see.
in my area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a
Interesting.
good is I would say yeah it's a sort of a natural disaster in
Yeah.
many ways. It's definitely
Mm.
it's not something like man made. So yeah, the
Yeah.
pandemic and like a viral yeah like the spreading of a virus
Hmm.
uncontrolled like this sure could be considered.
Yeah. I read recently that that pandemics may be easier to start because of things like destroying the habitats, the nature of certain animals,
Mm,
because it's easier for humans to catch diseases from animals now, apparently, which is an interesting. question, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, Vladimir also agrees. Like the last disaster is the violent, really, definitely is. Sure. And TT has another comment. Another disaster recently in the world is the Australian bushfire. Yeah, that we
Yeah.
talked about. That has happened in January and has killed so many wild animals. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's definitely true.
Yeah.
Really good example, TT. Good points that you brought up. You know, good vocabulary as well. If I could just give you one small correction, so related to what we said before. So see, because we are specifying the word January, and
Mhm.
January is finished, it's best to say here that happened in January. Okay, or you can say another disaster is the Australian fire that has happened recently and
Mhm.
has killed so many wild animals. So see, it's more of a mechanism that you kind of keep in mind based on the words that you're using. So because you're
Mhm.
specifying January, best to use past simple. But it's not because of the fact itself. It's where you were putting the emphasis. I could
Mhm.
say, today I have had 3 coffees.
Mhm.
Today is not finished. This morning I had 2 coffees. See,
Mhm.
it's where I put the focus. A really good example.
Yeah. Thank you all for your comments. Okay. I think we discussed this last one, so maybe we'll move on. Um, so maybe we will do this matching activity just because there is some good language
Mm-hmm.
in it. So
Yeah,
we talked about these disasters, but see what the definitions on the screen are. So
yeah.
again,
And
match the answers.
what's causing these
Mhm.
disasters? So while you guys match them and let us know, and if it's easier, guys, you can also match. Tell us the word and then say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so you don't
Yeah.
have to write everything from the answer.
Mhm.
So while you match it up, maybe Emily and I can alternate reading it and maybe
Yeah.
going over some of the terms that might be unfamiliar.
Mhm.
So the first one we see there is lightning, which we talked about, like a bolt of electricity that comes down from the sky. Carelessness, arson, or volcanic eruption. So here's some good words as well. So carelessness, think about the word careful. Say, be careful. So, you know, be very aware of what you're doing. Careless is the opposite. It's when you don't care. And carelessness is the noun, it's the idea. So it's the lack of care, when you ignore things. Carelessness. Arson, like, is that like what, deliberate fire, like deliberate
Mhm.
setting something on fire, right?
Yeah.
And then yeah, the other one should be clear.
Okay. Great. So I just before I read the next one, we have a comment from Vladimir. Anyway, all disasters in the world happened or maybe happen if you are stating a fact. You can use the present tense because of people's faults. Okay, because of people's actions or just because of people. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think many disasters do. I think maybe some like hurricanes or avalanches, maybe those are not so much about people, but maybe
Yeah,
things like wildfire, you could argue are always about
yeah.
people.
We,
That's
we refer to, of course, because if you consider the presence and the impact that humans do have on the planet, we even refer to the time period that we live in now. I
Mhm,
guess it's the era is what we call it. Is we call it the Anthropocene. So as in we have such an impact on our environment that we actually our actions, our collective
mhm,
actions, they do, yeah, they can even impact things as air pressure or
mhm.
etc. So yeah, it can have some very big
Yeah,
consequences. Anthrope,
yeah, for sure.
very specific word, of course, but
Yes.
it could be.
Okay. So the second one we have is unstable air in the atmosphere. So maybe unstable is just very uncertain. It is not solid. It is changing in quite a negative way. If maybe a table is unstable, it means it will fall quite easily. It's not fixed.
Exactly. Then we have severe deficiency in water supply. So supply means to provide.
Mm.
So how much is provided?
And the fourth one, I think Patrick is saying the fourth one goes with landslide, when a buildup of material is released. And you are right, yes. So there is a buildup, there is a significant amount of material, and then it is released. It is let out from somewhere where it falls.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because
I
I
think
guess because it's the
could.
cause. I think the one
Mm,
the number four, Patrick, is a good kind of almost like a definition of landslide.
yeah.
But these are maybe the causes, what would lead to that effect.
Mm.
Maybe like earthquakes could see create instability, eruptions, or just general. That the land might not be even the most appropriate, and people just built on top of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. So some of them overlap a little
Yeah.
in the definitions or the causes.
Yeah, drought, like Vladimir and Titi, I think you're absolutely right, guys. So, what causes a drought? And you're saying
Hmm.
that it's a severe deficiency in water supply. Yes. A wildfire. So, wildfire. So, what can start a fire? So, think about the cause here.
Hmm.
What could start? And this, I
Yeah.
would definitely go back to the comment Vladimir said before about people's fault. I mean, because
Hmm.
sometimes it could easily be just one little action can generate this. So
Yes.
number four, when the buildup of material is released. Again, because we're talking about the cause here, guys, I would probably say that this one is the first one.
Hmm.
Because we're
Yes.
just looking at the what's causing the fire. So see if lightning hits maybe a dry spot, it can start a fire. Carelessness. People are not careful. They might go camping in a
Hmm.
forest. They start a fire. They don't put it out the way they should. That little fire can really expand. And tornado, second. Yes, I believe so, TT.
Hmm. Yeah, which means that avalanche is about the buildup of material. Okay,
Yeah,
so
a
there
lot of
is
snow.
usually snow. Yeah. Okay. So maybe just to finish, see what you think about these phrases, these ideas. Think about whether these comments are true or false. Okay, so we have shouting loudly can cause an avalanche. So if you shout, if you speak very, very loudly, um, do you think that can cause an avalanche?
Yeah, it's definitely something you hear a lot about.
Mm,
Growing up, I've heard that.
yes, me too. Yeah, I don't know if that's true for landslides, whether they have the same rule. So Vladimir is saying false. Okay. Okay, so in fact we can reveal all of the clues here. And you are right, it is false.
Great. What do you think about number two, guys? So small forest fires can be good for the ecosystem.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because how do we define a small forest fire? I think it would be difficult to
Yeah,
know.
it's also relative as well.
Yes.
So
Okay,
you guys think it's false? Let's see.
this one is true.
Hmm. So yeah, it can remove dead brush and allow for new growth. So yeah, so sometimes the fire can really help, yeah, eliminate things that are there. Can give nutrients as well.
Mhm.
That's another thing that when we define things as good, bad, a lot of times we're thinking about ourselves, but we might have settled, we might have created cities in
Mhm.
areas that originally have always, that's one thing that I have heard. I'm not sure how true this is, but I've heard that, for example, many places in California, if you think about the earth and the way that sort of area works, is that fires have
Mhm.
often been seven cycles of fires that they
Yeah.
renew kind of the soil in that area. Of course, we don't want it because we built cities around there. They're houses now, but perhaps on a larger scale, it is just part of that of how it works in the geography of the place.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. I think that's right. Okay, so number three, we have volcanoes add nutrients to the soil, to the earth. And I think, yeah, we have true, and that's right. So they allow for new crops to grow more plants for food.
So number four, tsunamis can only travel for about 100 miles. I'm actually really not sure about this one. I don't know. So thousands of miles. Yeah, I guess it makes sense if you think about some big tsunamis, how they have hit so many like different continents, right? They'll hit like
Yeah.
I know in the Pacific Ocean they might hit like the Americas, but also Asia.
Hmm. Yeah, and they are scary because they can start locally, or you can see them coming, depending on where you are. Which is it's not like
Mhm.
hurricanes where you can. I think most of the
Predict.
time
Yeah.
they're coming. Okay, number five.
So five. Some of you guys are saying true. Some of you are
Right,
saying false.
okay.
Let's see.
Thousands of earthquakes every day. That is true. And most are too small to be detected for us to notice, which is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, because we only really feel like the big ones, and also I guess it depends a lot on the how high you are, in a building.
Hmm.
Closer you are to the ground, the less you will feel.
Hmm.
And then three out of every four tornadoes happen in the U.S. And we kind of touched on this earlier. And good, Vladimir. It's definitely true.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
great, guys. So we're getting to the end of our webinar for today. So
Hmm.
let us know if you have any final questions, maybe any words or comments that you want to make. But in the meantime, I wanted to thank you guys for all the great participation,
Yes.
lots of comments.
Yeah, and we hope some of this language is useful or interesting for you, but that you don't experience any of these things.
Yeah,
A nice
exactly.
balance of the two.
All
Okay.
right, guys, great. So thank you again.
Mhm.
We hope you guys, have a nice rest of the week. Maybe we'll see each other again.
Yeah.
We are back with webinars tomorrow, starting at 10 in the morning.
Okay. Have a lovely evening, guys.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.